Hey, folks, if you love drama inside the courtroom, get ready for May of 2019. Court TV is back. We'll be on the air with gavel-to-gavel live trial coverage of the biggest cases in the nation.
Someone who purported to be another.
With all due respect,
yes, sir.
The second mortgage taken on his father's home, the father only finds out about it when there's a foreclosure coming forward. Right. That's an organized scheme. Someone who took somebody else's property and purposely went out and borrowed money. And as far as his, out of 2017, he was put on probation in Montgomery, it's Maryland, for theft. So the notion that he doesn't have any history is incorrect. But I say the very start of
what there was a theft in 2017. No, he did. I indicated that he had.
Yeah.
But it was unclear from the pretrial release sheet as to whether that's a felony or a misdemeanor.
Exactly, Judge. And
well, he served 18 months. He's confined for 18 months.
He's confined for 18 months on that. On that case.
Disagree. Yes. No, I disagree with that.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm reading directly from this thing. He was put on probation for 18 months. Hence, it is not a misdemeanor in the state of Florida. I'm not sure what it is.
He's not on probation now.
No, he's not. I wouldn't disagree with that. But I said the underlying situation is a son comes in and takes a second mortgage on a father's without his understanding and has used other means in order to provide for that, meaning giving false information out, which is indicated in the particular thing. And that's what the state believes is a scheme. But
well, the statute, respectfully, Mr. Loughran, defines scheme to defraud means a systematic, ongoing course of conduct with intent to defraud one or more persons or with the intent to obtain property from one or more persons by false or fraudulent pretenses, representations, or promises of willful misrepresentations of a future act. All of that appears to be modified by the systematic, ongoing course of conduct, which seems to imply more than one episode. So if the obtaining one mortgage is one episode, that would not appear to qualify. That was my concern. So I understand that there were other acts or events that were forgeries or misrepresentations in connection with the acquisition of that one mortgage, though. So that I understand the state's argument to the effect that it would constitute a scheme to defraud. Give me a moment. Your client's an engineer?
Yes, sir.
Kelly?
Yes, sir. Owns his own company in Maryland.
Okay, give me a moment. All right, we'll make it $50,000 cash or surety on the organized fraud count, $15,000 on each of the criminal use of identification. Make it $10,000 on the forgery and utter forgery, each of those. It's a total of $100,000.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry,
so
Judge.
Conditions. Yes, ma'am. $50,000 on the organized fraud. That's count one. $15,000 on each of counts 2 and 3, the criminal use of personal identification information. $10,000 on the forgery. $10,000 on the uttering forgery. Okay.
Thank you.
The overall bond is reasonable on this matter, given the appropriate circumstances which the court has considered. Now, conditions: no contact with any alleged victim. Don't possess any identification that's not yours. Don't cash or deposit any instrument, any negotiable instrument that's not that was not your own. Any other requested conditions state?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Appear for your next court date. When would that be, Tricia?
That will be January 31 at 8 a.m. with Judge Brown in Vieira.
Your Honor, I may have misspoken, and let me clarify. I don't know whether the court had suggested or ordered that he have no contact with the victims, but certainly if he hasn't, I just want to make sure I may have missed that.
No, that's the first thing I said.
Okay,
First
good.
up, you understand, sir?
I have that written down, and I believe you heard you, Judge. Sir.
All right, very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
But that's all I have.
Okay.
May I be excused?
Yes, sir, Mr. Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us today, Judge. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Mr. Templeton.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Here with Mr. Jonathan Irwin. And Mr. Irwin is here on an out-of-state fugitive warrant or warrant. My understanding is the only warrant that I've been provided for was actually issued November 26th of 2018. That warrant, I believe, was dismissed by Judge Neighborhouse on November 28th of 2018. It is the same warrant which was subsequently dismissed by Judge Neighborhouse. He's bonded out here on his Brevard County case, and he's just continuing to be held on a warrant from Mississippi that I believe has been dismissed by the Brevard County court system.
Let's inquire of the state. Are you familiar with any action by any prior judge on this warrant?
I am not. No.
Is there anyone there from warrants today?
No, Your Honor.
Can we go ahead and get somebody from warrants on the phone here? Or could you call them for me?
Yes, sir. We'll call right now.
Thank you.
You have reached the Brevard County Sheriff's Office Judicial Process Unit. This line may be recorded. Please hold for the first available attendant. Judicial Process, this is Susie.
Hi, Susie. This is David Silverman here. I'm conducting initial appearance proceedings by video at the jail, and we're on the record here. There's a defendant who's come before the court whose name is Jonathan Michael Irwin, who's here as a result of an apparent warrant issued in the state of Mississippi. It's a warrant for a violation of parole.
Yes, sir.
Now, the defendant's under the impression that this warrant has either been dismissed or withdrawn, and believes that was done by Judge Neighborhouse here. Is there any action that, if such a warrant is taken out of the system, it would be incumbent on the sheriff's office to take it out of their computer records? Has there been any action with respect to this warrant that you know of?
It looks like we just received the warrant on January 2nd of this year. As far as we know, the warrant is good. We were just notified.
All right. Let's inquire. Mr. Templeton, what do you say was done with respect to this warrant?
Yes, Your Honor. He was actually picked up on a fugitive warrant back on November 7th of 2018, Your Honor. The same warrant that has been issued here, I believe, as far as the warrant of arrest for a violation of parole, for the same violation of parole. He was held here for 21 days, Your Honor. In regards to this warrant, it was subsequently dismissed on November 28th by Judge Neighborhouse because Mississippi had failed to do anything, had failed to come get him, had failed to, I guess, transport Mr. Irwin. That warrant, again, I have to believe it's the same warrant as far as the retaking the prisoner, and Judge Neighborhouse dismissed that, saying that they had not taken any action or had not come to pick him up.
Here's Mr. Templeton. Here's the situation, though. The warrant that he was arrested on at this point,
yes, Your Honor,
issued on November 26th. That warrant didn't exist when he was last arrested.
Your Honor, The warrant existed. This is actually a retaking from
this warrant was dated. This warrant is dated November 26th of the year 2018. So he was arrested, according to what you told me before that, on what must have been a different warrant, because this warrant didn't exist, right?
Well,
I mean, what you're saying, I gather, is this, Mr. Templeton. This may be the same basis. What they may have done is just reissued a warrant that was dismissed, and there may be no basis for it.
And that may be true, Your Honor, but what I am saying to you is that the court then would have held him on this warrant on November 28th under Judge Neighborhouse when he appeared before this court. Judge Neighborhouse actually dismissed the warrant, and that's what I'm saying to you, Your Honor. On November 28th.
He hadn't been arrested on this warrant. If he'd been in 21 days, Mr. Templeton,
yes, Your Honor,
on November 28th, he would have been arrested sometime around November 7th, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing holding him was that. That may have been dismissed by Judge Neighborhouse, but she wouldn't have addressed this. He hadn't been even arrested on this.
They wouldn't have released him from custody if this warrant was active, Your Honor.
Yeah, because the warrant that I have was dated November 26th. And it looks like he previously was released on November 27th, and that's because he hadn't been picked up. But it looks like they reissued the warrant since he wasn't extradited, and so this is a new warrant.
Okay.
Your Honor, if that's the case, we're going to ask for, a 10-day status to determine whether or not Mississippi is actually going to come extradite Mr. Irwin.
They have time in which to do that under the law. As I say, because his initial arrest would have been on a different warrant, I don't see that Judge Neighborhouse addressed this warrant that he is currently arrested on.
Yeah, and I can understand that reasoning, Your Honor. What I'm saying is that he would have never been released. He would have been held on this warrant if that were the case.
You'd imagine.
Yeah, the jail would not have released him.
Unless they didn't have this in the system. In other words, he was released on the 27th. This was dated on the 26th. It may not have gotten into the system by that time, and they may have just released him. So I understand that inference, but it's not one I would necessarily draw. When would a control date be? Tricia?
10-day control date will be January 22.
Okay, are you waiving extradition?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, very well. We'll go ahead and set it for then, and by which time I expect he'd be transported to Mississippi if he has not been. He'll be brought back to the court here so that other efforts can be made to make sure he's not languishing here in the Brevard County Jail.
What was the date? I apologize. What was the date?
January 22.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Templeton, thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Appreciate your advocacy.
Have a great day.
Thank you, sir. You too.
And I'm sorry,
Any other
Judge Silberman?
Yes, ma'am.
On
Yes,
our
ma'am.
first case of the day, the Roberto Clark,
Yes, ma'am.
on the docket it says, per the warrant, he is to remain in Brevard on community supervision. Did you want to impose that?
Community supervision?
Yes, sir.
Is that a permitted condition? First of all, is his attorney still there? Mr. Kelly still there?
No, he has left.
All right, I'm not prepared to add any other conditions in without his attorney being present.
Okay,
so the
thank
answer
you.
is the conditions are as I have stated them. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce myself. My name is David Silverman. I'm a county judge. We're here today. I'm your designated magistrate for initial appearances, and we're going to be doing several things in your case. Each of you is here as a result of having been arrested for an alleged criminal offense, and when you come up to the microphone there in just a little while, the court will advise you as to the nature of the charge that has been lodged against you. The court will make a determination from the sworn arrest report and whatever other submissions are appropriate for the court to consider as to whether there is probable cause for your arrest and detention on that charge. The court will address with you the issue of counsel, because being charged with a criminal offense, you have the right to an attorney to represent you, and if you desire to be represented by an attorney but cannot afford to hire counsel, after making the appropriate inquiry, the court will appoint counsel to represent you. The court will also be making a determination as to the reasonableness of your bond. In order to fulfill those functions, it may be appropriate that I speak to you, but no question I ask and nothing I say should invite you to talk about the case or the facts of your case, because anything you say at this proceeding may be used against you at the trial and at other proceedings in your case. The proceedings here are being taken down by an audio-visual recording system, and there's a representative from the State Attorney's Office present to take note of any such statements. You have a right to remain silent. Your declining to answer questions or make statements will not be held against you. If you elect to give up that right and make a statement or answer a question, you have the right to consult with an attorney before doing so. And there's an attorney present. Who's here from the Office of the Public Defender?
I am Mary Lou Thomason Harvey. Mary Lou Thomason Harvey.
Ms. Tomlinson. Ms. Tomlinson Hardy?
Yes.
Who's present and who's with the Office of the Public Defender and with whom you may consult. Now, if the court sets a bond that you're unable to post, you have a right to place a request before your trial court judge to reduce that bond, and you may do that by contacting the attorney I'll be appointing to represent you. You have a right to contact that attorney as well as your bonding agency and your family members by telephone from the jail. Now, at the conclusion of today's proceedings, whatever has happened, I ask and direct that you sign the paperwork the clerk will give you, and if not permitted to sign it by the deputy, that you accept that paperwork. It's not some confession or admission of guilt, but merely the minutes of the proceedings. It would give you notice of your next court date and any bond conditions in your case. If we do speak together today, to whatever extent that we do, it would be important for us to have a meaningful conversation. So those of you who are present here today, I ask that you be sworn or that you affirm to tell the truth in whatever testimony you may give today. So if you'd please stand at this time, and those of you who can, and as best you can, raise your right hand. Thank you. Do each of you swear or affirm that any testimony you give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Very well. I deem that you've been sworn or so affirmed. Now then, going to the take out of order list. Ronald Hess.
Morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Hess. You're here as a result of a warrant issued by a judge in the state of Wisconsin. Do you have any criminal charge pending here in Brevard County?
No, sir.
All right. Well, let me talk to you about a right that you have here, Mr. Hess. You have a right of extradition. Extradition is both a right and a process by which the requesting state, in this case the state of Wisconsin, would be required to generate paperwork to establish that there's a legitimate criminal charge that has been lodged against you, upon which you can be properly extradited and transported back to Wisconsin. Now, they have up to 90 days to generate that paperwork. If you wanted to waive that right, what we would do is they would not be required to generate that paperwork, and we'd set a 10 working day control date, by which time I expect they would have you'd have been transported to the state of Wisconsin. So my question to you at this point, sir, is do you want that process, that extradition process, to go forward, or did you want to waive that?
So if I waive it, they have 10 days to come get me?
Well, they would have 10 days, and what would happen if they weren't if you weren't transported by 10 days, I expect you would be, but if you weren't, it'd be 10 working days. It'd be, I believe it would be January 22nd. You'd be brought back before the court here to see what should be done. And there's a potential that what can be done, among other things, that the sheriff here can be ordered to transport you to Wisconsin.
Okay. I'll waive extradition.
Very well. Could we furnish him the documents sufficient to have him sign that, to do that, please? Is there not a form for that?
Yes, he's getting the form now, Judge.
Very well. Set the control date. Is it January 22nd? Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Tricia? And we'll leave it in no bond status at this point. Thank you, sir. That'll conclude your appearance here today. Thank you. Brings us to James Jackson.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jackson. You're here as a result of a warrant issued by a judge in the state of New York. Now, I wanted to address with you the same issue of extradition, because you have a right of extradition, and to have that process go forward, under which the state of New York would be required to generate paperwork establishing a legitimate criminal charge upon which you can be transported there. They would have 90 days with all the extensions of the law to do that. And if you wanted to, though, you could waive that, and we'd set the control date of 10 working days, yes, January 22nd, by which time I expect you would have been transported there. So my question to you, sir, do you want that extradition process to go forward, or did you want to waive that?
I want to go with the 10 days.
Very well. Deem that it's a waiver of extradition, and we'll set the 10-day control date. And it appears he's already signed that here. Is that right?
Yes.
The waiver? Very well. And I'll sign it myself. File that, and sir, sign the paperwork the clerk will generate.
Can I say one thing?
Appearance here today. Yes, sir.
I didn't know. I went on a cruise with the wife, and I didn't know I wasn't supposed to leave.
I want you to hold off on talking about the case. I'm really concerned.
Okay.
Let me explain.
All right.
I don't know myself what the possible maximum sentence could be in New York on this charge. I just don't know.
I understand
and I'm concerned that what you're saying here, you may think but it may involve an admission to something that they could replay this tape at that hearing and expose you to all sorts of liability. So why don't you hold off on that? See if you can contact a lawyer in New York.
I did. Okay. All right.
Address this. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sebastian Olson. Sebastian Olson, give me one moment, please. I gather what this is. It's an alleged on-site. So there hasn't been a warrant issued, but it's an allegation of that you should be extradited under the Interstate Compact. I'd like to take a look at this for just a moment. Here, I have it here in front of me.
If I may add, I have pending charges here.
You have pending charges here. Are you being held on those, or have you been released on those?
I've been released. I bonded out a couple weeks ago.
Okay. All right. My impression is that typically it'd be about 15 days for someone to be held to see if they're generating a warrant. Is that usual? The usual, Tricia, clerk?
Yes, sir, and that date would be January 29.
Okay. We'll go ahead and look at you be detained on this charge until that point. And at that point, in the event that they have generated a warrant, it would supersede this. If they have not, you may well be released as to the this violation of probation sort of charge.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
My court date is for these recent charges is here the 10th.
Well, you'll be transported to whatever proceedings are appropriate in those charges if you're at the Brevard County Jail.
Just making sure.
Yes, sir. I expect that would be the case. You should be in good contact with your attorney on that matter.
Thank you so much, sir. You have a great day.
You too. Brings us to James Sheffield. James Sheffield. When we can get Mr. Sheffield up, please let me know.
It doesn't matter. I'm being held on the old warrant. Okay, well, you got to call your attorney when you get a chance. It says right here, 1025.
Sheffield. Mr. Sheffield? Sheffield? Oh, I can't call him, but your attorney's gone. Sit down, sir, sit down.
It says right here, 1025.
Did I just say you're going to have to call you? Excuse me.
What is your name?
Sir?
What is your name?
I can't hear.
What is your name?
James Sheffield.
Mr. Sheffield, you're here as a result of a warrant issued by a judge in the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia would have 90 days under the law to generate the paperwork sufficient to have you transported there. You can waive that right of extradition, by which, and we'd set this for a control date on, is it the 29th?
The 10-day would be January 22.
On January 22nd, by which time I expect you would have been transported to Virginia. Did you want that extradition process to go forward, or did you want to waive that?
Yeah, I want to get this over with.
All right. We'll consider that as a waiver, and he's already signed the waiver document. Set this for January 22nd and direct that he be detained pending that proceeding. Thank you. Sign the paper the clerk will give you, and that will conclude your appearance. Brings us to Ian Hale.
You didn't fill.
Could I address Ian Hale, please? What is your name?
Ian Hale.
Mr. Hale, you're alleged to have failed to appear for early resolution proceedings in a felony case. Can you afford to hire a lawyer to represent you?
I already have a public defender on this case.
Respectfully, sir, when someone fails to appear, the public defender's office takes the position that they're no longer representing you. Now, assume that is the case, that they're not representing you at this moment. Let's go back to my question. Can you afford to hire a lawyer to represent you?
No, sir.
Has he completed a financial affidavit?
No, Your Honor. I have it right here.
All right. Directly fill that out, sir, and then submit it back to the court if you want me to consider the appointment of counsel to represent you, okay?
All right. Thank you, sir.
Do that now. Thank you. Pass on Mr. Hale. Richard Byrne.
Your Honor, he's surety bond.
Very well. Brings us to Alfonso Berry. What is your name?
Alfonso Berry.
Mr. Berry, do you know the nature of the charge that has been lodged against you without me outlining it here in open court?
No.
No? They allege that you intentionally exposed your sexual organs to another person. I understand your position. Ms. Berry, can you afford to hire a lawyer to represent you?
No.
He qualifies, sir.
One moment, please. find probable cause, appoint the public defender, state's position on the bond.
$500, Your Honor.
Defense position.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's alleged you've been in the presence of a law enforcement officer, right? State satisfied with 500? State?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Yeah.
State satisfied with 500 on
Absolutely,
this?
yes, Your Honor.
All right, 500 cash or surety. All right, without going into what happened or what didn't happen, don't expose your sexual organs to anyone there. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right, sign the paperwork. Clerk will give you an appear for your next court date on January 28th. Please promote that condition of the bond.
Okay. Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
No, I'm not going to debate about the bond at this point, sir. But for the state's recommendation, I think my bond would be higher on this.
No, I got death in the family.
Blake Burnett.
No, I got death in the family.
Burnett.
My mom and my daddy got killed this morning. I got death.
You can go ahead and address that to the appropriate judge by contacting the attorney I appointed to represent you. Could I have Blake Burnett please come up to the podium? Deputy, would you have Blake Burnett escort them up, please?
Burnett, Blake? Judge, there's no deputy at the moment. She's coming.
Guess who?
We're looking for Blake Burnett. Blake Burnett?
Burnett, okay.
Okay.
What happened to Blake Burnett? I mean, the deputies created this.
He's
coming
in, sir. He's on his way in. He's not feeling well.
All right, Blake Burnett, you're charged with battery by a person in a jail facility. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No.
He qualifies.
Appoint the public defender and find probable cause. State's position on the bond.
$5,000, Your Honor.
Your defense position.
Would be the schedule, Your Honor.
Right. One moment, please.
Third degree felony, 2,000.
Says he struck another inmate repeatedly, causing the victim's head to bleed. 5,000 is reasonable. 5,000 cash or surety. Don't possess any firearms, ammunition. Don't have no contact with the alleged victim. No possession of any contraband in the Brevard County Jail. Appear for your next court date as reflected in the paperwork. I direct you to sign Ms. Burnett's February 7th. Brings us to Luis De Silva. What is your name?
Luis De Silva.
Mr. Silva, you're charged with battery. It's alleged to be a domestic violence type incident. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No, I can't, sir.
He qualifies.
One moment, please. find probable cause, appoint the public defender. State's position on the bond.
$1,000, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I can't afford that much right now. Is there any way to lower that?
Defense position,
It would
Ms.
be,
Tomlinson.
it would be that we do the bond schedule, Your Honor.
Well, I think 1,000 probably would be the schedule on a misdemeanor battery charge, but there's not. I think, is it not correct?
If I'm not mistaken, sir, it's Rockledge Police Department that's pressing the charges, not the victim.
Well, under our system, the Office of the State Attorney is the entity entrusted with the responsibility to bring charges, or not. One moment, please. All right, 1,000 is eminently reasonable. State satisfied with 1,000 on this?
Yes, that's fine, Your Honor. The only thing that the state has noticed is that there was the influence of alcohol that's involved in this particular matter. I'd like to have that addressed by the court.
All right. By addressed, do you mean some testing, or do you mean just a no consumption provision?
No consumption provision, Your Honor.
Sir,
Mrs. Silva, I direct you not have contact with.
I'm sorry.
I direct you have no contact with Crispin Claiborne. Will you comply with that instruction?
Yes, sir. She was upset because I went to work. I'm a bartender. She thought she was going to go out and have fun and party that night.
Will you comply with that even if it means you need to find some other place to live?
Yes, sir.
$1,000 cash or surety. Conditions: no contact with Kristen Claiborne. Don't go to any place she is residing or may be employed. Don't possess any firearms or ammunition. Don't consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Obey any injunctions that have issued or that may issue. I caution you, Mr. De Silva, in the event you violate any of these conditions, you may be detained until they get around to resolving this case. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Very well. Sign the paperwork the clerk will give you and appear for your next court date on January 28th before Judge Atkin as reflected on that. Brings us to Paul. Yes,
sorry,
ma'am.
may I interrupt, please? We have Attorney Kelly here to readdress the Roberto Clark case.
Yes, Mr. Kelly.
Judge, I was asked to return to your courtroom to speak to you about the community supervision that was, I guess, part of the warrant originally. And
yes, sir. I had not imposed that.
Okay.
Because you were not here, the clerk asked me, was that continuing on as a condition? I said the conditions were what I had ordered.
Very good.
You were here.
All right, Judge.
I gather. So let me inquire of the state. State, is there some concern about community supervision here?
The fact that he's represented by Mr. Kelly removes some of the concern that you might have as him not showing up for in the future. And if he has no job down here, his work is out of state, and this occurred some 3 years ago, I'm not sure that the state is going to insist that be imposed.
All right. The conditions, Mr. Kelly, are as I have said them. There are no other conditions.
All right, Judge. Thank you.
Except for the standards. I mean, appearing for his court dates, not committing any new offenses, the standard conditions. But other than that, I'm not. There's the condition. The issue would be whether he's going to be required to remain here in Brevard County.
Right.
Except for coming to his court appearances, I'm not requiring that.
All right, Judge. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good day, Judge. Thank you.
Dude. Brings us to Paul DeSchreiber. Hello, Mr. DeSchreiber.
How you doing?
You're all right. You're here as a result of a charge of retail theft and trespass to Wawa.
Yes,
Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you in this matter?
No, sir.
He qualifies.
Does he qualify? Appoint the public defender, find probable cause, state's position on the bond.
$500 for each count, Your Honor.
Defense position.
No objection.
Yeah, I have an objection. I would like to ask for an RR. There ain't no problems with me showing up, and I've lived in this area for my entire life. I'm 48 years old. So I've never had an ROR, or I've never had a failure to appear. So, you know.
Well, that's true as far as it goes. They allege that there's a pending armed trespass and a pending possession of cannabis and possession of cocaine in Indian River County.
That's true enough.
Okay, well, respectfully, given those circumstances, $500 on each of these counts is eminently reasonable. $500 cash surety on each of these.
All right.
No,
I can afford it, man. All right.
Station on Palmetto Avenue.
It's just the problem is that my phone's not working right. I don't have the phone numbers. I got my mom's phone number, but last time I saw my mom, she didn't appear to care. I got the money and stuff, but I got nobody to call. I got no phone number.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I've appointed a lawyer. You can call your lawyer.
He's going to bond me out.
Okay. Well, your lawyer can help arrange to get a bond.
How?
Well,
I ain't never had a lawyer arrange a bond in my entire life. Anyway, all right.
Sign the paper the clerk will give you, and that will conclude your appearance.
All right.
Judge.
Jason Heilman.
And Judge, I also have Ian Hale's affidavit now, whenever you're ready to address
Very
it.
well. We'll take him up next. Mr. Heilman, are you represented by an attorney in this case?
Yes.
Who would that be?
Randall, Sanders, and Rice.
All right. One moment, please. One moment. One moment. All right, let's give them a call. Now, you've actually retained you've retained them to represent you. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you for calling the law offices of Sanders, Randall, and Wright. Please hold while your call is being transferred.
Yes, maybe you can help me. My name is David Silverman. I'm a judge here at the Moore Justice Center. I'm conducting initial appearance proceedings by video at the Brevard County Jail. And before before the court stands a Jason Heilman, who indicates that he has retained your firm to represent him in this matter. Who might I talk to about that?
Well, this is Michael Sanders Randall. I'm not actually sure what he's in custody for right now. We've talked to Mr. Heilman, and I'm really not sure what he's been arrested for at this point.
He's had a possession of methamphetamine, Xanax, and oxycodone case where he failed to appear for a bond hearing.
He had an FTA on the case.
Yes.
I did not represent him when he had an FTA on that case. He did come by to speak to us about some other representations. Honestly, I don't even know if we've actually made an agreement with him at this point. I just asked the court to set a reasonable bond if you can. I don't believe you can. I think he's out on probation as well. I think he's got a couple issues there.
That's okay. Sir, did you want, it is unclear to me, Mr. Heilman, that the Sanders, Randall, and Rice firm actually represents you in this matter. Did you want me to consider the appointment of counsel to represent you?
He qualifies, sir.
I'm sorry?
Okay, did you want me to consider the appointment of counsel to represent you in this case? Because it's unclear to me that they represent you in this matter. This is Mr. Sanders Randall on the telephone with me now.
Yeah, I want.
Mike Sanders Randall.
I'm sorry.
Spoken to my brother. and Ronnie's in court right now, so I can't really answer anything about what their conversation was.
Okay.
So at this point, I would say that I'm not representing him, and my office isn't representing him at this very moment as we talk on the phone. So I'd ask the court to go ahead and appoint him to PD at this time, or if he wants to represent himself pro se, I'd just ask the court on his behalf to consider setting him a bond. But I do realize that I believe he's out on probation, so I can understand where the court may have some concerns.
Sir, do you want me to appoint the public defender to represent you?
Sure.
Okay, appoint the public defender. State what's your position as to the bond here?
It's no bond, Your Honor, set by the court.
It's endorsed as that on the warrant. Give me a moment to take a look at the circumstances here. Okay, he has, in addition to this case, he appears to have a pending felony DUI as well as a pending battery by a person in jail. He appears to be on probation for carrying a concealed firearm, and there's this failure to appear. The judge has endorsed no bond on it. He had failed to appear for a hearing where I gather the state was seeking to have his bond revoked.
I don't doubt that at all.
At this point, the no bond endorsement on this appears to the court to be reasonable. I'm going to leave it at none. Now, sir, you can certainly place a request before your trial court judge to do that. You can do that by contacting the attorney I've appointed to represent you, and you can have further conversation if you're desirous of having the representation by the Sanders, Randall, and Rice firm.
Correct.
You can certainly talk to them further.
Okay.
That'll do it for today. Because I want to be clear. It is not. I have not. I've contacted them, but they don't appear to be representing you in this matter. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sign the paper the clerk will give you and appear for your next court date, January 21st, for Judge Mall, as reflected on that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders Randall. Thank you very much.
Court TV is back, folks. May of 2019, we relaunch. We'll be on television. Gavel-to-gavel coverage of trials. If you love courtroom drama, this is the place to be.
Bye-bye.
Judge,
the next I have on the takeout order list is Michael Moore.
Yes, sir.
What is your name?
Michael Moore.
Mr. Moore, you're here as a result of charge of disorderly conduct.
Yeah.
One moment, please, Mr. Moore. Can you afford to hire a lawyer to represent you in this matter, Mr. Moore?
No, sir.
He qualifies.
Find probable cause. Appoint the public defender. State what is your position on the bond, and I bring to your attention the pretrial release recommendation.
I agree with the no bond. Basically, hold for the Baker Act. He was Baker Acted, apparently.
Yeah, I was going to ask if I could be released back over to the hospital, where I could get some help instead of being locked down here.
Okay, it would be, what it would be at this point would be, if they'll pick him up, and I'm not sure they will, I would release him ROR, provided he is picked up and detained, at least for evaluation under the Baker Act, by Circles of Care.
Yeah, they said they'd come get me.
Oh, okay. Any objection to that arrangement, Ms. Tomlinson?
No, Your Honor.
All right. So release ROR only on the condition that he is picked up and detained for evaluation pursuant to the Baker Act by Circles of Care. Do you have that, Tricia?
Yes, sir, I do.
So, Mr. Moore, you can't just this ROR doesn't mean you can just walk out. They're come and pick you up. Do you understand?
That's fine. That's fine. I need it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Your next court date is January 28th. Sign the paperwork reflecting that. That'll conclude your appearance.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
And Judge, did you want to go back to Ian Hale now?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ian Hale. Yes, I forgot. Ian Hale, come on back up.
And he does qualify.
All right, Mr. Hale, appoint the public defender to represent you. State, is it your position that the bonds should remain as they stand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, defense position.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, leave the bonds as they stand. Appear for your next court date. It's early resolution proceedings before Judge Brown on January 31st. As reflected in the paperwork, I direct you to sign.
Excuse me. Judge?
Yes, sir?
I talked to the public defender's office on Friday, and my public defender, she said that she was putting in a motion to recall the warrant. It would be on December 10th. She told me if I did get arrested from Friday until the 10th, to mention that in the jail court, and they could look it up that there is a motion in place to recall the FTA warrant.
One moment, please. And there's a motion to that was filed on the 3rd to do that. I'd like to just give you a moment, please. One moment. Another minute, please. Well, Mr. Hale, there's this case pending here, placed on community supervision on October 23rd of 2018. Now, I'd have you not respond to this, but I'd like to explain why I'm taking the action I'm taking, is that they allege that on October 26th, that's 3 days later, there were new charges of giving a false name and driving a license suspended. That was and the judge endorsed $2,000 on that violation of community supervision warrant. That was Judge Brown.
Then
just let me finish. Okay. I asked you not to respond. Then there was another alleged failure to appear at the early resolution proceedings where that warrant was still outstanding and would have been executed had you appeared, I expect. $10,000 on the failure to appear is reasonable given these circumstances. Respectfully, I'm going to leave it as it stands. Appear for your next court date, January 31st, as reflected in the paperwork I direct you to sign. Okay. Thank you.
Judge Silverman?
That brings us to, yes, ma'am.
On the Jason Heilman case that you addressed, apparently Rodney Kernan is his attorney, and he's still active.
All right. We'll call Mr. Kernan and let's have Mr. Heilman back. Is he still there?
The deputy is going to get him now.
All right. Well, I was relying upon what he told me as to who his attorney was. So in the event that it's Mr. Kernan, if he's of record, I will go ahead and contact him and we'll readdress the matter.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and have Christopher Rolfe. Would you come up, please? What is your name?
Christopher Rolfe.
Mr. Rolfe, you're charged with battery. It's alleged to be a domestic violence type incident and criminal mischief. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you in this misdemeanor case?
I do currently have an attorney, but I've not been able to get in contact with him yet.
Who would that be?
Sam Baxwell?
Sam Baxter Bardwell?
Yes.
Okay. Does he actually represent you in this, or are you in the process of hiring him?
He's worked with me in the past, so.
Well, if he actually represents you in this matter, I would call him. If he does not, I would not. Do you want me to call him? Does he represent you?
Yes, he does. On the other cases, yes. And I've tried contacting him, but to no avail.
Well, we'll
Sam Bardwell.
Hello, Mr. Bardwell. This is David Silverman here at the Moore Justice Center.
Yes.
I was calling you. I'm conducting first appearance proceedings by video at the Brevard County Jail, and before the court stands Christopher Lee Rolfe, who has a
Rolfe?
Rolfe.
Has he been arrested for something?
Yes, he has a new charge of battery, domestic violence, and criminal mischief. And he said you've represented him in the past in other matters, and he thought you would be undertaking to represent him in this case. So I thought I'd give you a call, see if that's going to be happening.
Well, that came as a bit of a surprise, but if he wants me to represent him, I certainly shall.
All right. If you're going to be representing him, what I would do at this point, Mr. Bardwell, is I'd send you by email copies of or if you, unless you can reach them yourself, I can give you the case number. Can you look it up?
I can actually, if it's been scanned, I can get it right now.
Let me give you the case number and see if you can reach it. And if you can't, I can email you the documents. It's 2019 MM 010502-A.
Okay, I'll see if I can get a hold of that then. All right.
Well, can I?
Oh, right now. Let me just get on to it.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see. Yes, okay, the arrest affidavit has been scanned.
All right. Any argument on probable cause?
Well, let's see. I got it. Let me look at it real carefully. Well, it looks to me like there's a probable cause, Judge. We wouldn't contest that.
Fine, probable cause. Ms. Bardwell, let me have you hold on for a moment. Let's hear from the state. State, what's your position on the bonds on these counts?
500 for each count, Your Honor.
500 on each?
Yes.
He's got a pending aggravated battery, right?
Judge, that's a misdemeanor at the present time.
Defense position.
Judge, I think the state $500 per count is appropriate based on these facts.
I think that's eminently reasonable, and I think your stipulation of that, Ms. Bardwell, would be considered prudent.
I understand that, Judge.
We'll make it 500 on each of the counts. Conditions: no contact with Marcella Rolfe. Don't go to any place she's residing except for a one-time opportunity to obtain your personal belongings, and then only in the presence of a law enforcement officer. Don't possess any firearms or ammunition. Don't consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Obey any injunctions that have issued or that may issue. Appear for your next court date on February 12th before Judge Friedland, as reflected in the paperwork I direct you to sign.
Okay. Judge, could I ask you to just ask my client to give me a call when he's out of jail and come see me?
Did you hear that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Very
Yes,
well.
sir.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Bardwell.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And Judge, you said no illegal or no alcohol or illegal substance as well?
I did.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I said. Brings us to Quinteria Castleberry.
Judge, Mr. Hillman's back in here if you'd like to readdress that.
All right, Mr. Hillman.
Your Honor.
Mr. Hillman, I'm given to understand that you may be represented by Rodney Kernan. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Yes. Me too.
All right, one moment, please, sir.
You've reached the law office of Kernan and Austin. How may I help you?
Well, my name is David Silverman. I'm a judge at the Moore Justice Center. I'm conducting initial appearance proceedings by video. And before the court stands a Jason Heilman, who I understand is represented by Rodney Kernan. I wanted to see if Mr. Kernan was available to discuss this matter.
Alrighty, certainly. Mr. Silverman, can I get a good telephone number in case this call gets disconnected?
Yes. In area code 321-617-7284.
Thank you. I have 321-717-7284. Is this number correct?
No, 321-617-7284.
Thank you. 321-617-7284.
Yes, ma'am.
Alrighty. And this is regarding which issue?
A defendant whose name is Jason Heilman. Is Mr. Kernan available, or do you know?
I will see. One minute, please. Thank you.
Try Rich Austin as well.
They may have anticipated my disconnecting from this musical interlude here, and they can go ahead and call me about this in due
Mr.
course.
Silverman, I do apologize.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Kernan is unavailable at the moment. I can deliver this message over, and he will return your call as soon.
Well, he'll be returning the call, ma'am, to my judicial assistant, who should notify me by an email to a clerk whose last name is whose name is Betty Wertz, W-E-R-T-Z, that he has called back and that he's available. He can't reach me. I'm essentially in a courtroom proceeding here. He can't just call in.
What about
Right,
Rich
I will
Austin?
let him know.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, take a seat, sir. We'll be with you in due course.
What about Rich Austin?
Brings us. Take a seat, please. Savannah Carter.
Your Honor, you still had Ms. Quinteria Castleberry.
Quinteria Castleberry. I stand corrected. Thank you. What is your name?
Quinteria.
Quinteria Castleberry, you're here as a result of a warrant issued by a judge in Broward County. The Broward County authorities will be notified to pick you up. If they haven't done that by January 10th, you'll be brought back before the court here so that other efforts may be made to make sure you're promptly on your way. We'll leave you in the no bond status endorsed in the warrant. Please sign the paperwork the clerk will give you, reflecting that control date. Thank you. Savannah Carter. What is your name?
Savannah Carter.
Charged with battery by a person in a jail facility. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No. She qualifies.
Find probable cause and appoint the public defender, state's position on the bond.
5,000, Your Honor.
A defense position.
No objection, Your Honor.
Leave the bond as it stands at 5,000 cash or surety. No possession of any contraband. No contact with the alleged victim. Appear for your next court date on February 7th, as reflected in the paperwork I direct you to sign. Nathaniel Gordon. Nathaniel Gordon.
She didn't fill out her form.
What is your name?
Ashley Gromack? Yeah. Okay.
What is your name?
Ashley Gromack? Are you this?
Okay. Next on the docket I had was Nathaniel Gordon.
Your Honor, I'll have to find out if that individual's bonded out or what the status is on that one.
All right. Very well. Ashley Gromack, one moment, please. You're alleged to have failed to appear in 2 criminal traffic type cases. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you in these matters?
No. She qualifies.
Appoint the public defender. State your position as the bond should remain.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense position, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Leave the bonds as they stand. Appear for your next court dates on February 14th, as reflected in the paperwork that I direct you to sign. Lenya Jennings.
She didn't.
Lenya Jennings, you're here as a result of a charge of grand theft. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No, sir.
I have her form. Your Honor, I
does
have
she qualify?
Her form. Yeah. She didn't fill out a form.
All right. Ma'am, is there some reason why you didn't fill out this financial affidavit?
Nobody told me anything about it.
All right. I'm advising you now that if you want me to consider the appointment of counsel to represent you, that you fill that form out, and when you've done that, we'll talk again, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Brings us to Esther Ortiz.
And then you want to sign it right there. Where have you been? Because I couldn't find, I know, but before then, where were you?
Your Honor, we were informed that Ms. Esther Ortiz speaks no English.
I pass on Esther Ortiz. To the end, we'll get a Spanish interpreter for her and any others who may need that. Heather Pruitt. Heather Pruitt.
Yes, sir.
What is your name?
Heather Pruitt.
Heather Pruitt, you're charged with battery. It's alleged to be a domestic violence type incident. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
Not at this time, no.
According
Does she
to her
qualify for-
affidavit, she's not indigent.
Can you tell me, Tricia, what indicates that on her affidavit?
It shows that she's $37 over the monthly.
Okay, ma'am, are you employed?
I am, but due to government shutdown, I'm not being paid at this time, from my understanding.
What is it you do?
Work for a federal contractor at NASA. I'm in finance.
Okay. Do you support anyone other than yourself?
I support myself and my daughter, my stepson and husband. He just started work. I've been supporting all of us.
How many dependents does she list on her affidavit, Tricia?
There would be a total of 3.
Does she list 3?
I listed two children, and like I said, my husband just now started working again.
Patricia, how many does she list?
Yeah, re-looking at it, it's 2, a number 2.
All right. Respectfully, Ms. Tombleson, given the circumstances, and I'm familiar with the proposition that federal contractors may not be paying their employees at this point, it would seem to me that she would qualify for the appointment of counsel. So, Ms. Pruitt, do you own a house?
No,
any
sir.
land or house?
No, sir, I rent.
What kind of motor vehicle do you own?
Actually, they're still being paid on. I don't own anything, but I have 3 loans for 3 different vehicles.
You own 3 vehicles? All
I'm
right.
still paying on all 3 of them, but yeah.
Okay. If we totaled up the equity, how much would that be on the vehicles? Is there any equity?
Once they're paid off, yes. But they're
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. As they sit there now, no.
No.
All right. Ms. Tomlinson, I'm inclined to appoint the public defender. I'll hear you on that if you think this is improvident.
I have no objection, Your Honor.
All right. If it later turns out that this is incorrect, or she acquires the financial ability, you can move to withdraw then, but appoint the public defender now.
Thank you.
Now then, state's position on I find probable cause, state's position on the bond.
No PTR, no contact, no return.
Ms. Pruitt.
Yes, sir.
In the event you're released and you're instructed not to have contact with Jordan Pruitt, will you comply with that instruction?
Absolutely.
Even if it means you need to find some other place to live?
Yes. Yes. Right. I have a daughter that I need to look out for.
I understand that. I haven't quite got to that yet. State, I'm inclined to some third-party arrangement whereby she could have time sharing and communicate regarding the welfare of the child.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. Okay. You can arrange for time sharing for your daughter, any child you have in common with him, but you have to do that through a third party. Do you understand?
Jordan Pruitt is my stepson, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
That's
Thank
okay.
you.
But
Okay.
I have raised him since he was 8 years old. McKenna is the other daughter. She was at work at the time of the alleged incident when I called 911 for help.
Here's just bear with me on this.
Yeah.
If Jordan Pruitt is not living there, you can go reside there.
No,
Follow me? But if he's living there, you can't go back there to live. Do you understand?
Yeah, he is living there. Yes.
All right. Well,
but I can make other arrangements, sir, for myself and my daughter, McKenna.
But it's I understood the alleged victim was Christopher.
That's my husband.
Right. That's
I'm
what
so confused.
Okay.
I don't even know what's going on.
All right, just bear with me on this. Here's my instructions. I'm going to release you on pretrial release. There's not going to be a monetary obligation.
Okay.
However, you do have to pay. It's like $10 a week, and you need to, I think, is it not? And report to a pretrial release officer. I think you can do it by telephone.
That's fine. I will do that. I'll do whatever I need to do.
Judge, there's no fee for
Yes?
pretrial release.
What's that?
There's
no
no
fee for pretrial release?
Correct.
All right, very well. I'm not imposing one if there isn't one. I thought there might be. There's no contact with Christopher Pruitt
Okay.
And no contact with Jordan Pruitt at this point as well. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Now, if you have a child in common with Christopher Pruitt, you can have contact with him through a third party for the welfare of the child and to arrange time sharing. Do you understand?
And my daughter is my daughter, not my
Is it
stepson.
your-
My daughter also
Right.
lives in the residence, but she was not there.
Okay, is she? She's if she's your daughter.
Yes.
You can go with a law enforcement officer to obtain your personal belongings and your daughter.
Okay.
Unless she's also his daughter.
No, she's not. She's my daughter.
All right. Well, then you can collect your daughter and your personal belongings, but only with a law enforcement officer. Do you understand?
Yes, sir, I do.
Don't possess any firearms or ammunition.
No, I
don't
don't.
consume any
I don't
alcohol
drink.
or illegal drugs.
No, I don't do anything.
I'm not suggesting you have. I'm just suggesting I'm directing that you don't. Okay.
Thank you.
And obey any injunctions that have issued or that may issue. Now appear for your next court date on January 28th,
Yes,
as
sir.
reflecting the paperwork I direct you to sign, and be in good contact with your attorney.
Yes, sir.
Now I just one other point, Ms. Pruitt.
Yes, sir.
You're in a little trouble here. Don't make this any worse, and your attorney may be able to help you arrange this so there won't be any problems. Okay? All right. Sign the paper the clerk will give you.
Thank you, sir.
Now then, Kimberly Weekly. What is your name?
Kimberly Weekly.
Weekly, you're charged with driving under the influence with a minor in the vehicle, and felony child abuse. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No.
She qualifies.
Does she? One moment, please. Find probable cause. Appoint the public defender. State's position on the bond.
As to count 1, 5,000. As to count 2, 1,000. As to count 3, 2,000.
Defense position.
No objection, Your Honor.
It was 5,000, 1,000, and 2,000?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, the way I have it, let me talk about this for a moment. The DUI is, the misdemeanor DUI is like count 1.
Correct.
And then the DUI with a minor in the vehicle, wouldn't that be a more serious charge? Shouldn't the bond be higher in the second count?
Well, the reason that I'm suggesting 5,000 in the first count is the fact that this is at least her third DUI.
I understand, and that's they advertise this only as a misdemeanor. You're right. They seem to have it as an unenhanced DUI on that first count. That's why I mentioned it.
But I don't disagree as far as count 2 being 5,000. You know, it's. But I thought 1,000.
What do you recommend as to count? What do you recommend as to count 2?
1,000 was for count 2. It's 5,000 for count 1, 1,000 for count 2, and 2,000 for count 3.
That I deem that to be eminently reasonable. 5,000 cash surety count 1, 1,000 cash surety count 2, 2,000 cash surety count 3. Conditions: don't consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Don't drive a motor vehicle without a valid driver's license. What other conditions do you anticipate, State, particularly with respect to driving with a minor in the vehicle?
Well, certainly to be a prohibition against that. I'm thinking that the Department of Children and Family may be stepping in here as well.
Right. Obey any instructions by the Department of Children and Families, and don't have any minor in a vehicle that you're driving. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
What do you say as to the contact with Kiana McLeod, the alleged victim, the child?
Friend's daughter.
State.
Pardon?
What's your position?
Well,
That's the prosecutor, what their position is.
I'm thinking that the Department of Children and Family, whatever they decide to do, as far as I'm not sure if there's a father involved.
Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with her to have contact with the child as permitted by the Department of Children and Families?
I am, yes.
All right. Contact with Kiana McLeod only as permitted by the Department of Children and Families. Do you understand, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
All right. Appear for your next court date on February 7th before Judge Friedland is reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Judge, did you say no, she was not allowed to transport minors in her car?
Yes. No,
Okay, thank
no
you.
transporting minors in her vehicle. Candace Ward. What is your name?
Candace Ward.
One moment, please.
The state, it's an ROR, Your Honor.
All right, Candace Ward. This is a misdemeanor, though, right?
That's correct.
Wouldn't we set it to a docket sounding anyway? I mean,
Well, I'm not sure that.
On a felony, what we would do is just leave it to be announced, but I'm not sure they do that on a misdemeanor. I think they send it just to a docket sounding in any event, don't they?
The clerk will know that answer. I don't.
Tricia?
The next court date would be to be notified.
Okay. Typically, they don't do that in county court, do they?
I do have a lawyer too now.
Who's your attorney, ma'am?
Chris Cochran.
Okay, very well.
I'm sorry, Judge. It will be previously set as the future court date on January 16.
Okay. Then, very well. That's fine. Leave it. Is it set for arraignment?
Yes, sir.
All right. Leave it set for arraignment on January 16th. Release your ROR. Still, the non-monetary conditions remain in effect. That's no contact with anyone who works at Publix and no return to any Publix in Brevard County. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
All right. Appear for your next court date as reflected in the paperwork I direct you to sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to John Bourne.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
What is your name?
John Edward Bourne.
Okay, Mr. Bourne, you're charged with possession of cannabis and possession of drug paraphernalia. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No, sir, I cannot.
He qualifies.
Find probable cause and appoint the public defender. State's position on the bond.
500 for each count, Your Honor.
Defense position.
No objection, Your Honor.
Leave the bonds as they stand at 500 each. Don't possess any drug paraphernalia. Don't consume any illegal drugs. Appear for your next court date on February 14th as reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Brings us to
I'm
Peter
sorry,
Curtin.
Judge. Could you please repeat the bonds and the conditions on that one?
I left the bonds as they stood. I directed him not to possess any illegal drug paraphernalia, not to consume any illegal drugs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to Peter Curtin. What is your name?
Peter Curtin.
Charged with possession of a controlled substance and possession of drug paraphernalia. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you, Mr. Curtin?
No, sir.
I'm sorry, I could not hear your answer.
No, sir.
Can you afford to hire an attorney?
No, sir.
He qualifies.
Appoint the public defender. Find probable cause. State's position on the bond.
2,000 for count one, 500 for count two.
Defense position, Ms. Tomlinson.
No objection, Your Honor.
Leave the bonds as they stand. Don't possess any illegal drug paraphernalia. Don't consume any illegal drugs. Appear for your next court date on January 31st as reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign.
Yes, sir.
Brings us to Jonathan Hadaway? What is your name?
Jonathan Hadaway.
Mr. Hadaway, charged with possession of controlled substance and possession of cannabis. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you in this matter?
No, sir.
He qualifies.
Does he appoint the public defender and find probable cause, state's position on the bond?
The state is requesting $5,000 for count one and let me bring it back. I'm sorry. $2,000 for count one and $2,000 for count two.
Defense position.
Sir.
The bond schedule, the bond schedule, Your Honor.
It's in my property.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Did you want to consult with your attorney?
I'd like to just talk to you because this is the second time I've been arrested for marijuana. The first time they dropped it because I have my medical marijuana card, and now the same officer did it again, and my medical marijuana card is in my property. Yes, I do.
Please.
It's in my property. In my property, in Booking. October 8th, I was arrested for marijuana and they dropped it. I have a card.
State satisfied on two each of these? And
Yes.
part of the reason I ask, he's posted $20,000 in the pending case, right?
That's correct.
All right.
It's
State's
going
still
to be.
satisfied with
It'll be revoked.
Yeah, right. There may be some other motion for another day, but in terms of his financial abilities, this seems well within that because of he posted a much higher amount in another matter recently. 2,000 cash or surety on each of these counts, and there may be a defense to that, sir. That's you should consult with your attorney regarding that. Don't possess any or consume any illegal drugs. Appear for your next court date on January 31st, as reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign.
Yes, sir.
Hughes. Frank Hughes.
Morning, Judge.
What is your name?
Frank Hughes.
Mr. Hughes, you're charged with a violation of a county ordinance. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No, sir.
He qualifies.
All right. Find probable cause and appoint public defender. State's position on the bond.
$250, Your Honor.
Defense position.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I didn't hear.
This is Frank Hughes. He's got a misdemeanor ordinance violation charge. He's got some more serious sort of charge that he's out on. State's agreeable to $250 on this matter.
No objection, Your Honor.
Leave it at $250 cash or surety. Don't go to the location of the alleged violation. Don't urinate in public. Appear for your next court date on January 28th as reflected in the paperwork I direct you to sign. That will conclude your appearance.
I'm homeless, Your Honor. That's like $1 million to me. That $250.
And you can place a request to your trial court judge to reduce that. But that is I find it to be eminently reasonable today.
Okay, Your Honor.
Elliot Marco.
Afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Ms. Marco. You're charged with carrying a concealed firearm, as well as misdemeanor charges of possession of cannabis and possession of drug paraphernalia. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No.
Does he
According
qualify for the appointment?
according to his affidavit, he is not indigent.
I have no idea what that means.
Why, can you tell me what aspect of his affidavit indicates that, Tricia?
He is $43 over weekly.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I install car washes, but it is not a. I don't go to work every week. Like, I'll go work 2 weeks and then have a couple weeks off, so I don't have regular income. So currently, I don't go back to work until the 25th.
Do you own any land or house?
No.
You own a motor vehicle?
I own a pickup truck, yes.
Well, based upon the guidelines that I'm required to use at this point, I don't find that you qualify for the appointment of counsel. However, after making efforts to hire an attorney, if you are unable to make any mutually satisfactory financial arrangements, you can place a request before your trial court judge to appoint counsel to represent you. State, what's your position on the bond in this matter?
$2,000 for count 1, $500 for count 2, $500 for count 3.
Okay. Sir, why haven't you bonded out? This should be like $300 to a bondsman.
I just haven't had an opportunity yet. I was waiting. I called my father. He was going to see what he could do, but I haven't obviously heard anything from him, and now I'm here.
The bonds appear to be within your financial ability, and they are reasonable. Leave the bonds where they stand. State, are you requesting no possession of any firearms pending this case?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Don't possess any firearms. Don't possess any illegal drug paraphernalia. Don't consume any illegal drugs. Appear for your next court date on January 31st before Judge Brown is reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign. That concludes your appearance.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Jason Murphy?
And I'm sorry, Judge, you just said no firearms, no possession of drug paraphernalia, and no illegal drugs?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Murphy, you're charged with 5 counts of possession of controlled substance and 4 counts of possession of drug paraphernalia. Can you afford to hire an attorney to represent you?
No, sir.
Does he qualify for the appointment of counsel? Tricia?
This is Jason Murphy.
Yes.
He does qualify, yes.
All right, appoint a public defender to represent you. One moment, please. State, I'd like to address probable cause in this matter. I'm not sure how we get to 5 counts of possession of a controlled substance, even if I were to find that without any field testing, that syringe was sufficient, there's a sufficient basis to believe it was heroin.
Well, I think I agree with the court. I think there's one count. I think that he admitted that there was heroin in one of the things that he found. The state was going to suggest the 2,000 for count 1, ROR for count 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 500 for
What are
each.
you saying?
And then paraphernalia.
500 on each of the paraphernalia?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, but this paraphernalia depends upon the syringes and the bags having controlled substance in them, right?
That is true.
All right. I would respectfully, I'd go one count on the paraphernalia.
Again, I don't have an objection to that.
All right. Okay. Defense position. Did you get that, Ms. Thompson?
I did, and I have no objection, Your Honor.
All right. Find probable cause as to 1 count of possession of controlled substance and 1 count of possession of paraphernalia. On the possession of controlled substance, 2,000 cash or surety, ROR on the remaining 4 counts. On the possession of drug paraphernalia, on the first of those, 500 cash or surety, ROR on the remaining counts of those. Don't possess any drug paraphernalia, don't consume or possess any illegal drug. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, appear for your next court date, January 31st, as reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign. No illegal drugs, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Judge, could I have just a moment, please?
Yes. How long, should we take a recess?
No, that's okay. I just need one moment.
Okay. I think we have one passed, but we're down to two folks. Betty, have you gotten an email from...
I just checked, double checking now.
And
Let me
Judge-
know when you're ready, Tricia.
Okay. I'm ready. I just need clarification on one of the cases that we already did. It was docket number 45, Elliot Marco. I just need clarification on the bonds.
Okay, on Marco, one moment, please. Okay, on Marco, I left the bonds as they stood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps I said that too quickly. Ricky Watson. What's your name?
Ricky Nevin Watson II.
Watson, you're charged with driving while license revoked, the felony variety of that, and driving a motorcycle without an endorsement, a motorcycle endorsement on the license, on your driver's license.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
afford to hire an attorney to represent you in this matter?
No, sir. I got a public defender.
He qualifies.
And in fact, I do appoint the public defender to represent you in this matter and find probable cause. State's position on the bond.
2,000 for count 1, 250 for count 2.
Defense position.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. State, you're attuned to the proposition that he has some other pending charge, right?
I am, and I guess one of the things that I wanted, one of the conditions is that he not be driving any further. This is one outstanding, and we can nail him one way or another. It seems to me that he's looking like a bond revocation.
All right, I'll make it 2,000 cash or surety. Leave the no motorcycle endorsement at 250. Don't drive a motor vehicle under any circumstances for any reason. Do you understand, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Appear for your next court date on January 31st as reflected in the paperwork I direct you to sign. Thank you. Jerry Black.
Thank you.
This would be a file or ROR?
It's filed, Your Honor.
Filed as a trespass?
It was filed as count 1, trespass, other than a structure or conveyance, count 2, use or possession of drug paraphernalia.
Okay, so do I need to set a bond on the paraphernalia?
Let's see. Yes, I believe you do.
What do you recommend as a bond?
500.
Defense position on the bond.
No objection, no objection, Your Honor.
Add an account, a bond of 500 cash or surety on the possession of drug paraphernalia. The other is not a criminal type charge, I don't think.
No.
Okay. So it's 500 on the trespass, 500 on the drug paraphernalia. Whatever other non-monetary conditions were imposed originally remain in effect. Appear for your next court date as reflected in the paperwork I direct you to sign. Thank you. We still have. We may need to hold deputy. We may need to get a hold of Jason Heilman.
I also have Lena Jennings' affidavit if you want to.
And Lena
address
Jennings.
her.
We have Lena Jennings come up, and can we hold Mr. Heilman, please? Does Ms. Jennings qualify?
Yes, she does.
All right, very well. Appoint the public defender to represent Ms. Jennings. State, what's your position on the bond here on Ms. Jennings? Oh, I have a question. Ms. Thompson, will you check to make sure you don't represent Terrell Greer?
Yeah, we have, hold on just a minute. There are co-defendants, and we don't represent him as yet.
Very well. State, what do you recommend as a bond on this?
$2,000, Your Honor.
Okay, defense position.
The schedule, Your Honor.
All right, leave it at $2,000 cash or surety. No contact with any alleged victim. Appear for your next court date on January 31st as reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign. I'd like to take about 5 minutes. Let everyone settle in for a minute, and I'll be back shortly. Mr. Tomlinson, would you make sure that the new folks have gotten their affidavits in?
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am.
A little crazy this morning, Your Honor.
I understand. Let's let's make it 10 minutes.
Hey, I've got some great news to share with you folks if you haven't heard. You haven't heard? Court TV is back. We are relaunching May of 2019.
We go ahead and see. Yeah, Mr. Kerning, come on back up. Mr. Holman, come on back up.
Yes.
You've reached the law office of Kernan and Austin. How may I help you?
My name is David Silverman. I'm a judge here at the Moore Justice Center. I had called and left a message for Mr. Kernan earlier in connection with a defendant whose last name is Heilman, who says that Mr. Kernan represents him in this matter.
Okay, and I'm showing this information. So that was Judge David, D-A-V-I-D, and then Silverman, S-I-L-V-E-R-M-A-N.
Yes.
And that was 321-617-7284.
Yes.
Okay, and the message that you would like me to pass on?
Is this a answering service or is this the office? Because
I'm actually a receptionist with the office.
Okay,
You said it was for which individual? Mr. Austin?
Mr. Kernan, but if Mr. Austin's there, I'd talk.
Do you have someone there saying that they're being represented by Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Sir Austin.
Okay, give me 1 moment, okay, sir, and I'll see if he's available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I was represented more frequently by Mr. Austin.
Okay. Patricia, would you try to get the last pass we have? I believe is Ms. Ortiz. Could you get a interpreter on your end and then put them on hold until we can get done with this matter?
Yes, I can do that, Judge, as long as you could possibly mute that down there because it's really loud up here.
Oh yeah, I'll turn it down here. No, this is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I do apologize, but it appears he is currently unavailable, but I will deliver this right over to Mr. Kernan. Would you like me to mark this as urgent as well?
Yes, please. Thank you. My intention, ma'am?
I'm so sorry?
My intention would be this. If I don't communicate with him today, I'll continue this proceeding over until tomorrow, and he can participate by attending the proceedings in person.
Yes, I understand. So I'll send that over right now, marked as urgent. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.
You too.
It would be Mr. Austin.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Language Line Solutions. Please enter your 6-digit client ID. For Spanish, press 1. For other, press 2. Please enter the 5-digit extension number.
We have Ms. Ortiz come up to the microphone, please.
Please hold for an interpreter. Please continue to hold for the next available interpreter. Please continue to hold for the next available interpreter.
Go ahead and sign them now.
Please continue to hold for the next available interpreter. Please continue to hold for the next available interpreter. Please continue to hold for the next available interpreter. Please continue to hold for the next available interpreter.
Thank you for calling Language Line Solutions. This is Alma, ID number 219828. I will be your Spanish interpreter today. Is your client with you, or you need me to dial out?
Our client is with us. Ma'am, my name is David Silverman. I'm a judge here in Florida. And before the court stands an Esther Ortiz. Would you introduce yourself to her and make sure you and she are speaking the same language?
Hola, voy a ser su intérprete. ¿Me escucha? Bueno, ¿está usted ahí, señor Héctor Ortiz? Okay, yes, I'm here.
Would you tell her that she is charged with a aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and I find probable cause for her arrest on that charge.
But you said the name was Hector?
No, her name is Esther. Esther Ortiz.
Sorry. Su nombre es Esther Ortiz. Tengo aquí frente a mí un cargo en su contra de asalto agravado con una arma de...
My question... Okay.
Y yo encuentro causa probable para este arresto. Tengo una pregunta.
Can she afford to hire an attorney to represent her?
¿Usted puede pagar los servicios de un abogado para que la represente?
No. Your Honor.
No.
Bring up
Yes.
The affidavit of indigency is there, so if you can do the query, we'd appreciate it in Spanish.
All right. Ms. Thompson, I'm not sure I know what you mean. Has she?
Yeah, I do.
All right. All right, Ms. Ortiz, do you own any land or house?
Señora Ortiz, ¿usted es propietaria de alguna propiedad o tierra o casa?
No, solo la traila donde vivíamos con él. La compramos entre los dos, pero él siempre me corría y yo nunca me quería ir. Entonces, él, a lo mejor lo que pasó ayer, él lo tomó quizás para, ¿cómo le puedo decir? Se valió de lo que pasó ayer para sacarme de allí. Entonces, bueno, él dice que él quiere que yo me vaya.
My question was very narrow. Does she own any land or house? Could you have her respond to that?
We only own the trailer where we live that we both bought together. But he would always tell me to leave, and I guess he's trying to use what happened yesterday to get rid of me and get me out of there.
All right. Are you employed? Do you have a job?
¿Tiene usted empleo? ¿Está trabajando?
No, yo no trabajo.
No, I don't work.
Solo yo quisiera decir algo.
I would just like to say something.
Él dijo que...
I do find, hold off on that for just a moment. I find you indigent and I appoint the public defender to represent you.
Entonces yo considero que es una persona indigente y voy a asignarle al defensor público para que la defienda en su caso.
Now, Madam Interpreter, I'll advise you as to when to interpret this next. State, what is your position on the bond?
$5,000, Your Honor.
Entonces, vamos a ver un momento.
Defense position, Ms. Tomlinson, what is your position?
That it be set at the schedule amount.
I think the schedule is 5,000, isn't it, Mr.?
That is correct.
Okay. No objection.
Right, very well. Advise her that in accordance with the advice by both the state attorney, the prosecutor, and her attorney, I set the bond at 5,000 cash or surety. Please go ahead and interpret that, ma'am.
Cash.
Or by surety, or by a bonding agency.
Muy bien, entonces de acuerdo al consejo de el fiscal y también de su abogado o abogada, vamos a fijar su fianza en el monto de $5,000, puede ser en efectivo o a través de una agencia de fianzas.
Okay.
I direct as a condition of that bond that she have no contact with the alleged victim in this matter, Leonardo Perez.
Y una de las condiciones de esta fianza, en caso que la liberen bajo fianza, es que usted no deberá de tener ningún contacto con la alegada víctima en este caso, que es el señor Leonardo Pérez.
She is not to go to any place he is residing except for a one-time opportunity to obtain her personal belongings, but then only in the presence of a law enforcement officer.
Okay. Solo quiero agregar
Usted
algo.
no podrá ir, usted no deberá de estar presente en ningún lugar donde él esté presente, no deberá de tener contacto con él y podrá ir solamente una vez a esa dirección a recoger sus cosas personales, pero esto deberá de ser acompañada de un oficial de la ley.
Okay.
I just want to say something.
Okay. She is to possess no firearms or ammunition and consume no alcohol or illegal drugs.
Y usted, cuando esté libre bajo fianza, no deberá de tener en su posesión ninguna arma de fuego, ni tampoco consumir alcohol.
Yo no consumo
alcohol ni
alcohol.
drogas.
Yo no consumo alcohol ni drogas. Yo voy a la iglesia.
She is to appear for her next court date. When would that be, Tricia?
January 31 at 8 a.m. with Judge Brown and Vieira.
All right. Appear for your next court date on January 31st as reflected on the paperwork I direct you to sign.
Y su próxima cita de la corte está en esa papelería que le vamos a proporcionar. Sería el 31 de enero a las 8 de la mañana con el juez Brown. Voy a necesitar que firme esa papelería.
I understand, Ms. Ortiz, that you have some questions about this, but I'm reluctant to permit you to ask them because I am concerned that in doing so you will make admissions which could incriminate you in this matter. So I ask you to hold off on those at this point, just sign the paperwork and take this up with your attorney, the attorney I have appointed to represent you. Okay?
Y sí, entiendo, señora Ortiz, que usted tal vez quiera hacer alguna declaración o hacer preguntas, pero le voy a pedir que por favor se abstenga, se detenga y no las haga, porque me preocupa que puede incriminarse usted misma al hacer cualquier declaración en este asunto en estos momentos. Por eso le pido que por favor mantenga silencio y todo lo que tenga que hablar lo hable con el abogado que he asignado para que la represente, para que pueda defenderla.
Solo quisiera hacer una llamada, porque si no
I would just like to make a phone call.
Si no hago una llamada, nadie me va a poder pagar mi fianza, nadie me va a poder ayudar y no he llamado a nadie.
Because if I don't make a phone call, then nobody could help me or pay my bill.
You're entitled to make a phone call, but your attorney can help you do that. Don't call Mr. Perez. They monitor the calls from the jail, and if you do that, you'll be violating the order that I just gave you.
Usted tiene derecho a hacer una llamada y su abogado le va a ayudar para hacer esa llamada, pero no llame al señor Pérez, porque si usted llama al señor Pérez o tiene contacto con él, va a estar violando las condiciones que le acabo de dar para su libertad bajo fianza.
Está bien.
That's fine.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you.
Muy bien, gracias, señora Ortiz, que esté muy bien.
Gracias a ustedes.
Thanks to you. Will that be all for the interpreter, Your Honor?
Yes, Madam Interpreter, thank you for your fine service here today.
Thank you for using our services, Your Honor. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you, bye.
Tricia, you can terminate the call.
I did.
I think that does it for today.
Thank you, Your Honor. I apologize for those unsigned affidavits. There were...
Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah, well, there were difficult finding some of the clients and the inmates.
Sure.
Yep.
I understand perfectly. All right, and Mr. Hyman, just set him for tomorrow.